Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you this evening and appreciate the great turnout. Thank you for coming. So I'm pleased to tell you that I'm learning my way around this campus. It seems like I have the opportunity to be here every few months. I think it's a reflection of not only the great relationship that Northrop Grumman has with the University of Maryland, but the growing relationship that we have with this great university. You know, it wasn't that long ago that we got our ACES program started in cybersecurity. And I'd really like to say thank you to University of Maryland, starting with Britt Kerwin and Wallace Lowe and the whole faculty here for making that program work and for making it so incredibly successful. We're really, really excited about it, and we're counting on it, actually. So let's make sure we continue to make it successful. You know, when I think about the relationship here with College Park, though, in particular, this place, this university here at College Park, has more alumni in our company than any other university. 1,100 alumni of University of Maryland College Park work at Northrop Grumman. And we have a number of our leaders here today. Could I get our Northrop Grumman team to raise their hands? A lot of folks, enough here that I'm worried who's minding the store. So where it's But I also want to extend my congratulations to Ken. You know, Ken, as a CFO, is another example of how much we're counting on the great education here at the University of Maryland. It was off to a good start, though. Today, our stock price was up. So, Ken, I think the market likes you. That's good news. I'm also delighted that we have a variety of disciplines and majors represented in the audience this evening. We need the skills of business school graduates, of engineering graduates, science graduates, mathematicians, you name it. So many disciplines are needed for us to fulfill the mission of our company and to continue to support our customer community the way that we need to support it. So on a personal level, you know, while we're here this evening at the business school and today I spend most of my time focusing on business issues, that isn't the way I began my career. As Ken said, and he was kind enough not to put a timeline on it, a few decades ago, I was an engineering student. And I was excited about engineering and thinking about how I was going to make a difference as I was starting my career. And when I graduated from college, I made the decision that I wanted to work on problems that were related to defense and our national security. And after several decades of working in this industry, I can tell you that I think it is the most exciting and fulfilling and satisfying industry that a person can work in. I know there are lots of good industries out there, and I've had a chance to work with a number of them over the years. But there really is something special about working in the national security arena and knowing that you are making a difference. So I thought for a few minutes I'd like to give you a sense of what our company does within this industry, and then I'll switch gears and describe the kind of qualities and characteristics that this industry demands of those who choose to work in it, and especially those who become leaders in our industry. So let me start with a little bit of just a sampling, not a good overview, but just a sampling of some of the things that we do in our company, just to give you a sense of the type of activity that we have underway and the excitement that we have within our organization. So I'll start with an example of a technology, a class of technologies that we work on broadly across our company, both at the platform level and at the instrument level, and also in terms of being able to control it. And it's the class of technology that's broadly referred to as unmanned systems. Now, some who are less informed call those things drones, but we really don't like that terminology. Unmanned systems, I think, is a much better characterization of what they do. And it's a fascinating set of technologies that operate in space, they operate in the air, they operate on the sea and under the sea. It is an area of technology that's moving very, very quickly. They really do represent a revolutionary capability. If you think about it just in terms of the aircraft part of this, these systems sometimes are the size of an insect, and sometimes, like our Global Hawk platform, they have the wingspan of a 737. They are enormous and they are very, very complex. Oftentimes, people think about these systems as just another remote control airplane. Ours are not. They are robots. They fly themselves. You give them a mission, they take off themselves. If they encounter problems, if the weather gets bad, they deal with that themselves. They execute the mission themselves and bring themselves back. They truly are robotic systems. And if you think about the technological complexity that goes into making something like that work, it's not just the aerospace part of it, making it fly. It's also all of the computational capability, all of the security issues that go with trusting a robot to go and do the right thing and come back. Lots of different technologies, all integrated into one amazing capability. And a capability that is increasingly important. These systems spare our citizens dangerous roles and sometimes spare our citizens from trying to do things that humans just aren't cut out to do, whether it's very, very long endurance flights or flights at altitude that are very, very difficult for pilots. And they have a wide variety of applications. They not only are used in military operations, we've used them a number of times for disaster assistance. When there was an earthquake in Haiti, Global Hawk was one of the first systems deployed so that we could actually see what had happened and that the first responders who are arriving in Haiti to help, whether by air or by sea, would know where to go and be safe. When there was a tsunami in Japan and the nuclear reactor at Fukushima was having difficulties, there weren't a lot of people volunteering to walk up to the reactor and figure out what was going on. So we put a robot in orbit up above it so we could see what was happening and we could help people figure out what to do. So as I said, it's an exciting class of technology and it's one that's moving very, very quickly. Another example, and one that's very meaningful here, is cybersecurity. And as I said earlier, we're delighted to have our ACES program in cybersecurity here at the University of Maryland, and I'm excited to see how the tentacles of that program can expand into some other areas here as well. We all know that every day there are fewer and fewer aspects of our lives, whether we're talking about national security or we're talking about the things we take for granted every day, like the water that comes into our homes or the account balance that's in our banking account. Fewer and fewer things that are not critically dependent on network computers. And we all know that if those networks and those computers are vulnerable, then in essence our very way of life becomes more vulnerable. And as you probably know, they are vulnerable. The networks and computers that we all utilize every day are increasingly vulnerable. And the threat to our critical national infrastructure, our financial systems, our energy systems, our transportation systems, you name it, that threat is very real and it's growing very rapidly. And we all know that this is a cause for real concern. The threat is so real and so large, in fact, that the Department of Defense has ruled that a cyber attack on our country would be considered a true act of war, and it could be responded to not just with a cyber response, but with a conventional military force. Northrop Grumman has been playing a critical role in solving this cybersecurity challenge for many, many years. And of course, we alone can't solve it, but we are a critical component of the nation's approach to addressing cybersecurity issues. And it's an exciting field and one that we're proud to be working in. Now, not every challenge that our industry works on has direct national security implications, at least not immediately and in the near term. So I'll give you a case in point on that, and that's a program that we call the James Webb Space Telescope. This is a major telescope program that we're building for NASA, managed out of the Goddard Space Flight Center, not too far from here, actually. And if you want to think about what this telescope does, an easy way, an easy coordinate system to begin that thought process is to think about what current telescopes do. And the field of telescopes has been continuing to grow and grow. You know, we've had larger and larger ground-based telescopes. But really today, the ultimate telescope capability that is in existence and operating is the Hubble Space Telescope. And from Hubble and other observatories, we've learned a lot. We've learned about dark matter, about black holes, about planet formation, and we even have a reasonable sense of the age of our universe, which we presently think is around 14 billion years old. So as we build these telescopes, essentially we are building instruments that look back in time by observing light that was transmitted long, long ago, headed in our direction, that we catch with these telescopes and take a look at it. So in a sense, they are time machines. And Hubble's a pretty good time machine, but it's not sensitive enough to show us the universe as it was near the time of formation, around 14 billion years ago. So we need one of those. We need one of those things to help us look back, to really understand the early stage of physics, and to gain a better understanding of our universe, and therefore the mechanics that will help us create things and use that knowledge. So how do you build a telescope, which, as I said, acts essentially as a time machine, that can take us all the way back to that time period just around the beginnings of the universe? Well, to start with, you have to understand the word big. We need to get more light. And that's what James Webb is. James Webb needs to be about 100 times more powerful than the Hubble Space Telescope. And you have to understand the word cold. Because whereas Hubble operates a few hundred miles above the Earth's surface, and therefore is subjected to the radiant energy of the Earth and, of course, the Sun, this new machine that we're building will need to be so light sensitive that its instruments will need to operate near absolute zero temperature. And to do that, we have to put it in a very special orbital node about 1 million miles away from the Earth, where we can maintain the right geometry with the Sun and the Earth and the other planets. And we build a very large shade that will block out that thermal energy so that this telescope can operate near absolute zero. So I mentioned big to start with. Big means you have to fold this thing up. You have to fold it up so it fits into the fairing of a rocket. And then, again, robotically, because we're not there 1 million miles away and there's a long delay to control it, it has to unfurl itself and precisely position itself and point and operate. And back to big for just a moment. These mirrors that are going to be so big have to be incredibly smooth, because otherwise they will be imperfect and not operate very well. The accuracy standard on these mirrors is less than 1/1000th of an inch. So if you want to think about that in a dimension that you can imagine, just if you looked at one of the mirror segments, if you blew it up and made it the size of the United States, the smoothness would require no bump to exceed 2 inches in height across the entirety of the United States. That's an incredible feat. So for those of you that are particularly mechanical engineering students here, I think you'll have a good sense of what we're talking about. So we advance these technologies across all different types of activities, and we really enjoy working at the very edge of technology in our company. But we know that it is people who develop all of these technologies. And just as we work hard at developing technologies, we know we also have to work incredibly hard at developing our team, and especially developing great leaders. In fact, I think that's one of the most important activities of any leader. Developing the next team of leaders for any enterprise, whether you're working in a company or you're working in the government, you're working in a university, you have a primary job of developing the leaders for the future. So let me switch gears for a few minutes, move away from my discussion on technology, to talk a little bit about what I think it takes to be a successful leader in the defense industry. And quite frankly, I think these principles really apply across almost all industries, but my experience is primarily on the defense side, so I'll talk about that. I think there are really 3 fundamental strengths found in almost all successful leaders. First, just an absolute passionate commitment to their work that influences not only their actions, but influences all those around them. Second, real competence, which includes both knowledge and expertise. And third, a very serious focus on ethics and integrity. So let me offer a few comments about these 3 characteristics or 3 fundamentals. And then at the end, I'll go and talk about more the personal side of it that I think is more tailored to each individual. So let me start with passionate commitment. I think it is true that most good leaders, most great leaders especially, really actually enjoy what they do. They have a positive view of their work and its rewards, and they can remember the exciting time in their life when they first began acquiring that passion and that excitement. I remember it very well when I was young. I remember the Apollo launch program. I remember the early exploratory ventures that NASA was running towards the unmanned missions, towards other planets that were underway. It stirred in me just a great curiosity and a great desire to somehow be a part of that. And I was fortunate enough to have great encouragement along the way from some absolutely fabulous teachers, and that eventually led me to study engineering and to make the decision to focus on defense and national security. And I think most of us at some point through some set of experiences have developed that excitement, and if you're able to convert that excitement into what you actually do, it's a powerful thing. And I think leaders have to be oriented that way. If we expect to lead, we have to be able to inspire that passion and excite our teams around the challenges that we face and the opportunities in front of us. Determination to excel, determination to succeed based on that passion for what we do. But it turns out you have to have a bit more than just excitement. You also have to really know what you're doing. You have to have a real knowledge of your business. A leader's main task on a day-to-day basis is to set and maintain and constantly assess the organization's course, and of course to push hard to accelerate the organization's progress towards achieving its objectives. So in addition to passionate commitment, leaders have to have real knowledge and expertise. And given today's complex business environment, this expertise must include strong analytic skills and problem-solving abilities. I think those abilities come primarily from really working inside the business and having a variety of experiences in the business to gain a breadth and depth of real understanding. And of course, your ability to do that is predicated upon achieving a strong education at a great place like the University of Maryland. But you have to bring real expertise and knowledge as a leader. I spent about a decade as a hands-on engineer in our company. I happened to be an engineer designing satellites. We have engineers doing lots of different things. I then served in program management, business development, and finance positions, in addition to a variety of general manager positions within the company. And I think that experience serves me well in working with our teams across the organization in determining the strategies and the actions that we need to take. So whatever your path might be in any organization, I would encourage you to think about a path that enables you to see a broad section of the organization and to gain that variety of experiences that helps you really understand how the business operates. So passion, knowledge, and expertise really are fundamentals. But even that mix is not sufficient if you want to focus on achieving long-term success. To stay strong and successful, companies need to have a culture of integrity in all of their relationships and in how they approach their own performance. Ethical behavior must underpin everything you do. Company teamwork, partnerships with other organizations, stakeholder interactions, public trust, you name it. And the company's leadership team must itself epitomize this complete integrity in everything that you take on. I could spend all night talking about that one, and I hope we get some questions when we come to that point. But I really do think that mixture of passion for what you do, real knowledge and expertise and competence, combined with ethics and integrity, those are keys to leadership success. Let me move away from those three sort of universal aspects of leadership and talk about what sometimes differentiates one leader from another. When you go to make decisions, leaders often rely on a very personal input in thinking about how you make the decisions that you face and frequently face many times every day. Over time, most of us will develop certain guideposts for decision making that reflect our own particular outlooks and our judgments, those that are based deeply on the values that we hold as individuals. So I thought I'd share some of the guideposts that I regularly use, not to suggest that these are the ones that you should use. Each individual should develop these based on their own view of the world and their own experiences. But I merely want to give you some perspectives and encourage you to think about value-based approach to decision making to guide your own thinking. So my first guidepost that I use in making decisions is my belief in the importance of building trust in relationships. That is, I want to make decisions that contribute to increasing trust in whatever the set of relationships might be. To inspire trust, you have to communicate openly, you have to be honest, and you have to meet your commitments. Trust is what keeps our customers coming back to us to do the very, very difficult and challenging things that we take on. In a highly collaborative business environment, leaders need to build ties of trust between multiple stakeholders, so you have to have that full picture, whether it's multi-company teams, globally diverse team members, a variety of public officials, a global customer base, you name it. Within organizations, we all recognize the importance of inclusive, participative management. So in employee relationships, trust in one another's commitments is absolutely critical. And you can see this in teams. If you just observe how teams perform, teams that know how to collaborate based on trust do absolutely amazing things. And the teams that somehow miss that ingredient tend to fail. They certainly underperform the teams that operate on the basis of trust. So because trust underpins all kinds of relationships, I take that as a key guidepost for decision making. So whenever I contribute, or whenever I think about how my decisions can contribute to a relationship or a set of interactions, whether or not it maintains or increases the trust in those relationships is a key point of decision. A second guidepost I rely on in decision making is my personal commitment to encouraging innovation. Keeping one's mind open to new approaches and embracing change when it looks promising, I think, brings real vigor and real value to an enterprise. In fact, I find that those who naturally possess that type of mindset make the most remarkable contributions, not only in the workplace, but in private life as well. We all know that innovation is growing ever more important for business, and the pace of innovation is almost astounding. Just trying to keep up with it sometimes is a full-time job. But I would say up front, particularly for those of you who have not yet had the opportunity to work in a large enterprise, not every enterprise values innovation. In fact, sometimes large organizations like ours can be the most challenging in that regard. In large organizations, there's oftentimes a strong investment in the as-is condition. And innovation means change, and change means doing something different. In fact, I've seen some large organizations that practically drive good innovators away in order to minimize the inevitable disruption that comes with fresh ideas. Now, I've also observed that those organizations usually don't last very long, thank goodness. But if you find yourself in one of those, think about whether you should really be there. Some of the best advice I ever received regarding innovation was from my thesis advisor when I was in engineering school. He was a very seasoned advisor. He had been in academia for many years. He had also worked in industry for many years. And it turned out mine was the last thesis that he signed off on. So this was a gentleman that I thought the world of. And when I was graduating, I went to see him to ask him for some advice. And the words that he gave me then have stuck with me through my entire career. It was very straightforward. He said, "I've gotten to know you pretty well. I know you like to cause a little bit of trouble, but I also know that you like to come up with new ideas and fresh ways of looking at things. And you're going to find yourself coming up with some new idea when you get out and work in industry, and you're going to end up being really passionate about one of those or some of those ideas you come up with." So he said, "Here's my advice. You get a great idea, you go find the folks in your company that you think are the most experienced at this and who understand it the best, and you try it out on them. And if they tell you that it should work, well, they're probably right. Go to it, work really hard to make it happen." And then he said, "But if they tell you it can't be done, but you still feel really strongly about it," he said, the professor said, "I would bet even more strongly that it can be done. If you put your mind to it, if you figure out how to organize and rally a group of folks to go get it done, those are the bets that'll pay off the most." Well, he was absolutely right. And it was some of the best advice, as I said, that I've ever received. And I think about it often as I see innovative ideas in our company, oftentimes put on the table by those who have really, really done their homework and are bringing real passion to their ideas. It's uncomfortable in a large organization, as I said, because it means disruption. It means taking risks that not everyone is comfortable with doing. But more often than not, we tend to support such ideas. And it's not just me, it's our leadership team. We do tend to support such ideas, even if they bring that uncomfortable change and increased risk. Because innovation's burdens must be tolerated if the potential for payoff is sufficiently promising and if it's motivating the team to really push forward. A third very important guidepost for me in making decisions is a commitment to creating value. And when I'm talking about value, it's not just profits, although with Ken here I have to say profits are really important, but not just profits, but also the value sought by all of our stakeholders, whether they're our customers, our employees, or the various communities in which we operate. I apply this guidepost of value creation not just as a business person, but also to what I want to accomplish in my life as a whole person, including the many aspects of my life outside of business. On the business front, the concept is pretty clear, the concept of value creation, one that I think is probably taught here in great detail and should be taught because it's really important. Creating value usually means using resources in such a way that you get out more than you put in. We all think about that, right? The concept of return on investment captures the idea pretty well. But the same notion of return applies more broadly than perhaps just the financial math would suggest. When we think about creating value for customers, employees, and local communities, we need to broaden our perspective to other metrics, other measures of how we're actually creating value, and what kind of return we're actually generating for all of our stakeholders. Good examples. When we're talking about customers, we think about their satisfaction, the quality of the products. When we think about our workforce, we ask ourselves, are they really engaged? Do they really feel included? Are they able to bring everything they've got to making us better? When we think about our communities, we think about the things that are important in our communities. We think about environmental stewardship. There are a lot of different aspects of this. The guidepost of value creation is also applicable when you're thinking about your own individual capability to make good things happen. Each of us, it turns out, is granted a certain amount of human capital, fortunately somewhat different for each and every one of us. How we put it to use and what we make of ourselves determines the return on that capital that was granted to each of us. And I think that's a good framework to think about what you want to do and how you want to take on the world of opportunities that you're going to face. Using the framework of value creation helps us understand the basis for and the implications of the actions that we take, and I think can significantly contribute to the quality and the confidence in our decision making. So let me wrap up and just briefly touch on the points that I've been making. I think successful leaders of organizations rely on those fundamental strengths that I mentioned: a passionate commitment to their work and the people with whom they are working, real expertise and knowledge of their business, and absolutely uncompromising integrity. And in addition, leaders generally have strongly held personal values that uniquely shape their decision-making priorities. And I do think that relying on value-based guideposts helps leaders deal with the challenges of decision-making. Decisions are rarely easy, not the important ones. Leaders use the strengths I've discussed to lay a foundation for continuing success. They elevate the dignity of all that is done in their organizations. They work to ensure that their employees are all in and are able to be all in. They build that inclusive team. They foster open communications. They generate and maintain trust. And they encourage the organization and the team themselves to continuously learn and grow. And that's part of what I love about our industry. Those characteristics, I'd love to say you can only find that at Northrop Grumman, but to be honest, our defense community broadly embodies those values and those perspectives. And I'm proud to work in our industry. And as I said, from my perspective, there is no better place. I'm working with some of the most brilliant people in the world, and we're working on some of the most challenging and satisfying projects that one could even imagine. I also work among some of the finest and most ethical people that I could ever imagine having the opportunity to work with. So I'm excited about our industry, and as I look around this room this evening, I hope many of you are excited about our industry as well. We need new leaders. We have great opportunities, not only today, but emerging over the next number of years across our company and, quite frankly, across our industry. And as I said, we have a great experience bringing the wonderful graduates of the University of Maryland into our company and seeing what they can do. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to your questions. All right.
Thank you, first of all, for coming to Smith. We really appreciate it. My name is Lena Bauer. I'm a freshman finance and accounting major and serve on the executive board at Smith. And my question is, what piece of advice or pieces of advice would you give to the college version of yourself?
Oh, there's a lot looking backward. And I've tried to give that advice to my children, but they're just not listening to me. So, the first and foremost, I was an engineering major, and I'm forever grateful for the engineering education that I received. It has really helped me a lot along the way. But when I had the opportunity to communicate with engineering majors, one of the first things I encourage folks to do is to figure out how to break out just a little bit beyond the engineering curriculum and go for as much breadth as you are depth. Engineers are naturally organized and aligned on getting great depth in their technical discipline, and it's important to have that. But take the opportunity, particularly as an undergraduate, to go and take some classes in areas that don't seem like there are obvious benefits to you in the near term. It will help broaden your thinking. It'll make you a better engineer. It'll make you a better leader over time.
Hello, my name is Christian Johnson. I am a computer science major, ACES president, and am currently working as a cyber systems engineer for Northrop Grumman.
All right.
Mr. Bush, what do you envision will be Northrop Grumman's fastest growing market in the next 5 years, and how do you think this will advance our nation's interests?
So we have so many that are, and it's always interesting to answer the question about growth in the defense industry today, because we are actually in our 7th year of declining defense budgets. But yet, as I mentioned earlier, there are areas and currents of technology that are moving so quickly that we are able to tap into them and are realizing some great growth in a number of areas. I mentioned a few of them. Cybersecurity, unmanned systems are really important. Another important area of growth for our enterprise is actually our international business. For years, our company positioned itself as a company that, because our technology was so advanced, we really couldn't export very much. And our nation, over the last number of years, has moved to a place where we are encouraging our allies to take more advantage of some of these advanced technologies, and our export rules are changing. So our international business is growing rapidly within our enterprise, and we're excited about that future as well. So it's both driven by the technologies that we're working on, as well as the marketplace, the international marketplace. And we're looking forward to the pendulum swinging the other direction on domestic spending and enabling a bit more of that too.
Hello, my name is Serena Haryanto. I am a freshman undergrad here at Smith studying supply chain management. What do you most value about the Northrop Grumman culture?
Well, as I said earlier, I love working in a place where the fundamentals of ethics and integrity are so high. So that's a foundation, and we all, I think sometimes we have to put a spotlight back on it because we treat it as such a foundation that it's just a threshold expectation. So but that is the starter. I love the innovation. I love the innovative spirit that runs through our enterprise, and I absolutely love just the pure energy that creates and the excitement and enthusiasm of our team that goes with that. So I love working with our customer community. That's a given. We wouldn't be in this industry if that wasn't so important to us. But I'll tell you, my very best days are when I get the chance to interact with our teams that are creating new concepts and to see that innovative thinking and that excitement. I know we're in good hands for our future.
Thanks for speaking with us tonight. My name is Nathan DeGraw. I'm a Smith MBA alumnus, and I currently work as a Cyber Chief Architect and Engineering Manager at Northrop Grumman.
Fabulous.
My question for tonight is, what's one of your biggest failures?
Well, as I said earlier, I have a long list of things that we work on, and you would know that we have a number of leadership characteristics that we use in our company to stress the values. Fundamentally, making sure that we're absolutely doing the right things in the company, and that we're willing to test ourselves on that. You have to constantly be willing to sanity check what you're doing, and the only way to do that is to have a team that feels really, really comfortable in pushing back on leadership. And I can say that we've got a good team that pushes back really hard on leadership, and I feel really good about that. And I think that is a really important value for any enterprise to have. We're not perfect in that regard, wouldn't claim to be perfect, but I think that's going to serve us very well.
Larry Gordon, I'm a professor here in accounting. So take the reverse. What's one of those things that you could have a redo that you would like to do it over differently than what you did before?
Personally or corporately?
Corporately.
Corporately. So normally the things when I think about corporately that I wish I had a redo on, they come to activities that we made a hard charge on and weren't successful. So whether it was a line of investment that we were pursuing that we may have turned off too soon.
Can you give me an example?
I'll give you a great example, and I have to be a little bit careful because of some of the classification stuff. But the work that we've done over the years in electronics is phenomenal. And we have tended to gate the work we've done in electronics based on resources we thought we could apply to it. And that field is moving so quickly. If I turned the clock back 10 years ago, I would have tripled or quadrupled the investment that we made in that field. I'm glad about the investment we did make. It's paid off handsomely for us. But I would have just taken everything I could have and thrown at that line of investment. So we're all learning, as we go, the things you wish you could have done. So that's one aspect of it, areas that I look back on, places we should have moved faster and gone faster. Culture change is another. So, if I think about the diversity in our organization today, I'll just use one particular line of diversity. Diversity means a lot in our organization across the board. But if I think about the role of women, today, half of the senior executives on the leadership team of the corporation are women. It wasn't that way 4 or 5 years ago. We're a much better company with this diversity. And if we could have moved faster on this, we'd have been even better than we are today. So, the things that perhaps sound obvious, but you look back on and you think, geez, what held us back? But then the important question is whatever held us back then holding us back now in some way? And if it is, how do we bust that barrier down? So I think that's the constructive part of looking back.
I'm Lily Suklal. I'm a junior studying bioengineering here at Maryland, and I'm the director of the startup incubator here called Startup
wow.
Shell. My question is about startups. So many large technical companies gain new innovation and technology through the acquisition of startups.
Yeah.
What is Northrop Grumman's position on startups?
Yeah. So we love startups. We work effectively with a number. In fact, in some cases, we invest in startups so that we have a more comprehensive relationship. If we see something that's really promising, we will want to create a technology relationship with a startup. And we do, over time, acquire some startups. It is a good source of innovation, and not just in our industry, but across all of industry in our country and I think around the world. So startups are a critical part of the ecosystem of innovation that is still working so incredibly well in our country, and I think is actually a long-term competitive advantage for the United States. So I'm always excited to see young folks in particular be interested in getting something started. And I think it's important to consider early on those relationships with larger companies. You obviously have to navigate that carefully so that you maintain the capability of a startup. But I do think there are a lot of advantages in forming those relationships. Just be strategic in the way that you do it. But I think it's a wonderful thing, and hope as our economy starts to heat up again a little bit, we see more of it.
Wes, we have time for about one more question.
One more, Jeff? Okay. One more question.
But this is working. There we go. I'm a broadcast journalism and marketing major.
Mm-hmm.
You're a man who came from a technical background, very hands-on engineering at MIT, a lot of depth, and now you're a man who's doing a lot of things across a lot of different areas. Can you talk a little bit about that transition over the years and how it shaped you and how you became that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I appreciate the question because it's a good way to emphasize the importance of what leaders do. I was very fortunate. I had a number of folks over the course of my career who forcibly moved me, in some cases with me kicking and screaming, that I did not want to change what I was doing. And they moved me for that very reason, that I needed to get a much broader understanding of a variety of disciplines. So marketing, business development. I spent some time in the business development arena, and had I not done that, there's no way I could have been a general manager. Those moves that enabled me to get different experiences were incredibly important to me. And as I said in my remarks earlier, when I think about what leaders are doing and need to do, helping folks who are early in their careers see the benefit of broader experiences, I think there's a lot of value to that, and I think it's a responsibility of leadership. Very good. Thank you, everyone.